Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Small Business Briefing. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming one of our newest members, App WT Websites and More in Livonia. So thank you to them for joining. And today I am joined by my colleague, Kelly Saunders. Kelly, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Sarah. Again, I'm Kelly Saunders, Vice President of Policy and Engagement here at SBAM, filling in for Brian Callie today. So, Sarah, we are lucky to have a guest with us today. And so I'm going to welcome Wendy Block from the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. We had our advocacy day last week where we were talking about some very important policy initiatives. And so we thought we'd invite Wendy on to have a deeper dive on that. As you recall, on this program, we have talked before about the Big Six, a collective of business organizations that have come together to work on certain policy issues surrounding business. And so, Wendy, welcome to the show. I believe this is your first time with us. So why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself and your title, and tell us a little bit more about the Michigan Chamber of Commerce and what you do on a statewide level.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, and thanks for having me. I am a newbie to your show, so appreciate the invite to be here with you today. As Kelly said, my name is Wendy Block. I am the Senior Vice President of Business Advocacy at the Michigan Chamber. And in that capacity, I serve as the Michigan Chamber's Chief Lobbyist. I lead all of our political and legislative affairs. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Michigan Chamber, we are a statewide business organization similar to SBAM. We work very collaboratively with SBAM. In fact, we have about 5,000 members across our great state, and our members are of really all sizes and types and across all 83, across all industries, and we have members in all 83 counties of our state. So thanks again for the opportunity to be here.
Yes, and the Chamber is obviously a great partner in numerous ways. And so, Wendy, last week when you were with us for our Advocacy Day, we had a panel up on stage and we started working and talking about some issues that make us a little bit nervous coming up this legislative season. And so we work together hand in hand on numerous issues, one of those being workers' compensation. And you have been a part of the system for a while that has seen system changes within workers' comp. And so for our folks on the program today, let's level set a little bit. Can you give us some background on the workers' compensation system? We did do some reform about a decade ago that you were in the middle of. So could you just tell us about the system a little bit? And then what changes were made a little while ago, and then we'll go into what we're hearing.
Yeah, so happy to do that. So I guess the first thing that's probably important for your members to understand is that in Michigan, we have a mandatory coverage requirement for workers' compensation, meaning that nearly every employer in the state has to buy workers' compensation insurance to cover their employees in the instance that there is a work-related accident. And it is a no-fault system, meaning whether it is the employer or the worker's fault, if someone is injured at your workplace or in the course of employment, they are guaranteed to be covered by workers' compensation. And when we talk about coverage, we mean really two things. First of all, we're talking about wage loss benefits. So 80% of someone's wages can be covered by the workers' compensation system. That is the law today. And then also that injured workers' medical bills will be covered by the workers' compensation system. So it's primary before any health insurance or anything. And frankly, health insurance shouldn't even be a factor in this because workers' comp should cover that. And it could cover just those medical bills that initially occur, and it can cover medical bills that may need to occur longer term to cover that injury. So going back to 2012, there were a number of changes that were made to the system. And really, those changes codified or basically took some former Michigan Supreme Court decisions and said, we're going to actually make them law. We're going to turn them from case law into actual statutory law. And so it kind of doubled down on this idea of work search requirements, right? If someone is partially disabled, they're still able-bodied and they can return to work, the system now has a statutory requirement that had been in effect about 10 years prior to the statutory changes being made that requires someone to be actively seeking work, and that there would be a reduction in penalties if they fail to do so. Those are the big changes. There were some other things done related to pre-existing conditions to kind of clarify that it needed to be an aggravation of a pre-existing condition. Something needed to happen in that workplace for coverage under workers' compensation to kick in, and some other around the edge things. But in all, this has reduced premiums to employers very considerably since that time. Michigan is considered a leader in this area of the law and really has controlled costs, but while still ensuring that injured workers are able to get the benefits that they need and deserve.
Thank you for that synopsis. And it sounds like it was a good, healthy process where numerous stakeholders were engaged and involved. And we always want Michigan to be a leader in a good way. And so let's pivot a little bit and talk about some of the murmurs we're hearing around this current legislature. It's our job, obviously, to not only inform our members of things that we're hearing, but also to really educate legislators on how things could be very harmful to our members. And so what we've been hearing as we've been doing our meetings is that almost a complete overhaul of the system, which obviously shakes us to our core a little bit, not a little bit, a lot. And so tell us a little bit about what you're hearing. You had seen some bill drafts or some talks about what could be coming and how this could impact our members alike in skyrocketing premiums.
Yeah, so great question. And this area of the law obviously is very dense and complicated. So I'm going to try to stay high level, knowing that people might have follow-up questions for Kelly and Sarah. And certainly you can ask those questions and they can work to help get you more specific details if you feel like I want to know more about that. Okay. So we did receive some draft bills going back to the summer of 2023 that the plaintiffs bar, the plaintiffs attorneys, were shopping with legislators and with the administration. And they are proposing very aggressive and costly changes to the workers' compensation statute, and really are a profound attack on what we consider to be the grand bargain under which the workers' compensation system was first established in 1912. So if you remember, we talked about how workers' compensation is a no-fault system, right? Not no fault insurance, auto insurance, but no fault as it relates to workplace accidents. And how that system was built is that there were some trade-offs made going back to 2012, where employers would be shielded from lawsuits in exchange for the prompt payment of workers' compensation benefits for anyone injured at work, regardless of who is at fault, right? So again, this includes wage loss benefits, it includes medical benefits. But some of these changes that we're seeing now even want to go back and revisit that grand bargain to say, yes, we want to continue to have these wage loss benefits and these medical benefits, but we also want to be able to pursue lawsuits as kind of a parallel track, right? And that is very concerning, right? That we would be potentially opening the floodgates to civil lawsuits against employers under these changes. And what could happen there is, even if you just allow that from a practical standpoint, it could increase the financial exposure for Weekly's workers' compensation benefits from somewhere in the $98,000 per year per claimant range to about $196,000 per year per claimant. So you're talking about not a very small change there. And if you'd like, I can kind of talk about some of the other stuff, but that is a really big one.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
I know I appreciate you being high level, but I do think that people are interested in this in our sphere.
Yeah.
So feel free to continue.
Okay, sounds good. So other changes kind of in this legislation, and there are so many, we couldn't possibly cover them all today, but they are looking to essentially gut this idea of partial disability. Basically, if someone cannot return to the job that they were doing pre-injury or be accommodated in that place of employment, the injured employee would be considered totally disabled, therefore not required to do any sort of work search requirements and be entitled to their full benefit amount. This again is very concerning because elimination of partial disability means full payment and means that you're going to have a number of people that are just going to be sitting on the sidelines despite being able-bodied, kind of more, that's kind of a generalization, but that's kind of what we're talking about here. Other things that they're looking at are increasing the weekly wage loss benefits from 80% of your wages to 90%, and that would be for future claims, adding a annual adjustment based on the weekly benefits. So they would want to annually increase the amount that someone is eligible to tie the weekly benefit amount to not 90% of the state's average weekly wage, but 150%. Again, very expensive when you start talking about that. And how much it would cost, about $500 more per claimant. And then I guess finally, one more thing is they want to revisit the question of who is and isn't an employee under this law. So I think Kelly and the SBAM team has done a really good job of keeping its members informed about these significant changes that are being proposed to the test of how someone is and isn't classified as an independent contractor. While we feel like we've got a good handle on that legislation, that standalone legislation, and feel like it's pretty well bottled up, they're trying to sneak that language into this legislation as kind of a backdoor way of achieving this policy change and really significantly limiting who can and cannot be classified as an independent contractor in our workplaces across our states. So, I mean, again, like lots and lots of things, many more things than even those things that I covered today, but those are the high level ones.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. And to me, you are an expert in this area. We are so fortunate to count you as a friend and a partner in this what could be a fight, essentially. I do want to make it clear to our audience, this has not been introduced legislation. We are on the front end of having, elongated talks with our friends in the legislature and other stakeholders. But Wendy, as we round out this conversation, could you just tell us, our audience, why this matters?
Yeah, and I think that's really important, right? We started with this idea that every empemployer has to buy workers' compensation insurance to cover their employees. Some employers can also be self-insured for this purpose, or they might be part of a fund where they band together with other small employers. But regardless of how you get your workers' compensation insurance in Michigan, this legislation will impact you. And it's going to impact you from a pocketbook standpoint. So as we have gone through this legislation and have worked with members who have far more expertise in this issue area than I do, many believe that the legislation as written could double, if not triple or more, the cost of any workers' compensation claim in Michigan, which essentially means you will double, triple, or more the cost of premiums for Michigan employers. So again, real big concern here, just because this is a cost driver for businesses. This is a key cost of doing business in Michigan. We want to make sure that we remain competitive in this column, and this will quickly put us in that kind of uncompetitive column if it is passed as the bills that we've seen are written.
Well, thanks, Wendy, for being with us today. And if this interests you and you want to be more involved, please feel free to contact the SBAM team here. We obviously have great friends like Wendy that walk alongside us, and we will continue to keep you updated on this very important topic. So thanks again, Wendy, for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you soon.
All right. Yes. Thanks, Wendy. And thanks, Kelly, for the work you're doing for the Michigan business community. All right. We have a couple of other policy related items to discuss today, Kelly. And the first is that the House Higher Ed Appropriations Committee has been having hearings to hear more on Governor Whitmer's proposed community college for all. So what's the latest?
Yes, if you recall, Brian and I have both talked about this idea of free community college for all. And so now that the legislature is starting to move towards the budget, they are starting to have hearings in their respective committees. And so the governor has had her own policy team, but also stakeholders that support essentially the community college guarantee to be in front of the respective committees and give the case for why this should be put in place in the budget. And so the House Higher Ed Appropriations Committee was meeting last week. And so just as a reminder, the governor's proposed plan for 2 years of free community college for high school graduates is the focus. And so how the money will be allocated and its potential impact on affordability and equity was really at the forefront last week. And so the Michigan Community College Association was the main presenter last week. Obviously, they are very much in favor of this. We have seen and heard from the four-year colleges, university setting, that they're not necessarily in favor of this. And you can imagine why. They kind of want people to choose, obviously, their institutions to go to for all 4 years. And so we are seeing a little bit of banter back and forth there, but focusing on the Community College Association presentation, their stance was this program will help support a population of students who want to enroll in post-secondary education, who may not have sought out a 2-year degree before, or a 4-year degree for that matter, making the case that if they get in for those 2 years, they may choose to go 4 years once they've had the opportunity to really experience the education sector in this way. And so an interesting data shared with the subcommittee showed that 40% of the 2023 graduating class across Michigan had not enrolled in post-secondary education. So I'm going to say it again, 40% of the high school graduating class had not chosen to enter a post-secondary education. That's pretty large if you think about it. So the case again being made by the Community College Association would that this would remove affordability barriers and create a more robust talent pipeline. Obviously, we've been very focused here in Michigan on making sure that you as employers have a very robust talent pipeline. And so the case is being made that this would be one of the opportunities to do so. So another thing that they're pointing to is that this does draw down federal Pell Grants and allows students the opportunity to access funds that way. And the reason that it wouldn't be as expensive for Michigan would be because the federal funds would be essentially supplementing, and then we wouldn't have to allocate as much of our general fund budget to this program as a whole. They have also been connecting it to the Michigan Reconnect program, which we obviously have been very supportive of in the past. I will put a little bit of a caveat on this. We love Michigan Reconnect. We believe in it. We do also believe that there needs to be accountability standards and real outcomes that come from it. And I would say that Michigan Reconnect, while we stand behind it, we are on the front end of getting data to see if it really is working. And so in tying metrics in this space to Reconnect would be a little premature in our minds. So we're not saying that we are for or against this community college guarantee. What we're saying is, what are the metrics going to be to make sure that this program is successful, so that when students choose to enter into a community college, that they truly have those wraparound services and a plan to make sure that when they're going through the system, that they are getting that certificate, that they are getting that degree. And if there's some pivot that needs to happen, or if there's a barrier that's there, that we're wrapping our arms around making sure that people are successful, not enrolling and dropping out, and then we have no idea where that money goes. So we're going to be watching committee hearings a lot for the next couple months and seeing how this unfolds. But I would anticipate that SBAM is going to be on the forefront of making some recommendations on how this program could be successful, and making sure we have benchmarks and metrics in place to make sure that we're not just throwing money at something, that we're really seeing outcomes and making sure our people are successful and prepared.
All right, well, we'll definitely look forward to learning more about those recommendations in a future briefing update. All right, next, Kelly, let's talk about a new caucus. This has been created based off of the recommendations of the Growing Michigan Together Council. So tell us more.
Well, we have talked about the Growing Michigan Together Council a lot on this program. As a reminder, our president and CEO, Brian Calley, sat on that commission, was a part of the production of the report that was put forth. And a couple members of the Michigan House of Representatives decided to take kind of some lead with the recommendations that came out and started a new public transit caucus. We know that transit is very important, specifically to Gen Zers, who the governor and the legislature have been trying to court to either keep here in Michigan or to have people come in as that next generation that will be taking over the workforce. And public transportation is very important to them. Many people don't choose to have cars. They don't choose to drive. They choose to use Uber, Lyft, buses, trains, all of that that's available to them. And the committee that was assigned to, I'll say, infrastructure, did point out that we probably need a reevaluation of our public transit systems. We here at SBM don't have anything against that. We want to make sure, obviously, that funds are being allocated and used in a responsible manner. This caucus, had their first initial meeting to talk about what are our goals? What does that look like? People start to creep towards, does this mean that it's a tax hike? Does it mean it's for the city? Does it mean it for the county? Is it a statewide tax? Those are the things that make us a little bit nervous. And so we're encouraged to see that the Growing Michigan Together Council report was taken seriously. We're glad that they're having these conversations. We'll continue to monitor what comes out of it, but it was very clear by the chairs, Representative Jason Morgan from the Ann Arbor area and Representative Mike McFall from Hazel Park, that they said there are no legislative proposals at this moment. There's nothing to consider. They're just exploring. And so we'll make sure to keep track of what's going on there. But again, encouraged to see that legislators really did read that report. And we'll see what they come up with, if anything, moving forward. But we will keep our eye on some opportunities for tax hikes that we probably wouldn't be able to get behind. But responsible funding for transit makes sense.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Okay, let's move on and talk about the Michigan Republican Party. Brian has covered kind of the chaos that's been occurring within this party over the last few months. And this past weekend, there were dueling conventions held. So what happened?
Yes, again, Brian has, I believe, called it a fiasco numerous times. And I'm sure some of you are saying, I don't understand. We had a presidential primary on Tuesday and now they're having conventions. Isn't Trump the person? Well, at the end of the day, yes, Trump is the person that they have chosen for their nominee. But just an overview. So President Trump did dominate the caucuses over the weekend. There were dueling caucuses, well, in theory. There were numerous things that happened last week. Former Chair Christina Caramo had been fighting to maintain her seat and had put up tried to put up numerous court blockades, and she just kept on being, struck down, specifically before the caucuses over the weekend. As you recall, I believe Brian had mentioned that former Ambassador Peter Hoekstra from West Michigan had been instated by the RNC, and that was recognized by a Kent County judge prior to the weekend. So the convention under Caramo, which was supposed to be held in Detroit, was essentially canceled, and it was held at the Amway Grand Plaza in Grand Rapids over the weekend. They did have two districts that essentially decided not to show up, which was the 4th district and the 1st district, and they held their own separate caucuses in their respective districts. Those delegates will not be recognized because the RNC rules that put Peter Hoekstra in place and to have this convention was the convention. So all that to say, that's the layout. But so delegates did gather in Grand Rapids towards a common goal on Saturday. They voted in overwhelming numbers to make former President Donald Trump the party's presidential nominee. Trump did win all 39 delegates at stake in the 13 separate congressional district caucus meetings. and he was the unanimous choice in 4 of the districts and won more than 89% of votes in each of the caucuses. As a reminder, former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, has not bowed out of the race and has continued on. So this does sweep Trump's win in Michigan for the primary win on the vote on Tuesday over former South Carolina governor, and earning him 51 of the 55 delegates that were for the primary that was voted on Tuesday. So just to make it clear, he got some delegates on election day on Tuesday. These caucuses were to secure the rest of them. When the Democratic legislature passed moving up the presidential primary this past year, that was the decision by the RNC. It had to be a hybrid version because it did violate the RNC rules. And it's not the Michigan Republican Party's fault that that happened. So this was the compromise that was put forth in order for Trump to secure his delegates. So anyway, at the end of the day, Trump is the guy for Michigan on the Republican Party side, over all the squabbles that have happened over the last few months. It has been made pretty clear that former Ambassador Hoekstra is leading the charge now, and President Trump will be the Republicans' choice for Michigan. So we'll see if it continues to be a fiasco or if the Republican Party can come together. But that is the news of the day on the political front.
All right, well, thanks for that update. We received some news today from Governor Whitmer's office about some federal funding that might be available for small businesses who have been impacted by lack of snow. So here we are. It's I think 69 or 70 degrees here in Michigan in early March, and this is just one of a string of days where we're experiencing above average temperatures, and we know that this really does impact our members in these small businesses that rely on snow and cold weather to stay in business all year round. So, like I said, today, Governor Whitmer did issue a press release. She's urging small businesses who have been impacted by this lack of snow to apply for federal funding. This is through the Small Business Administration, so the SBA, not us, but through the Small Business Administration. And these are economic injury disaster loans, EIDL loans, and they're available due to ongoing federal drought declarations that are impacting 42 counties here in Michigan. So these declarations were actually brought on last summer due to rainfall drought, but they apply to snow as well. So there's 42 Michigan counties. We're going to drop a list in the chat and on Facebook as well. But loans are available up to $2 million. And they can help meet your obligations and operating expenses that you can't meet due to this lack of snow. And just so you know, they are loans. Businesses pay no interest on the loan for the first year, and then the maximum rate is 4%. So just remember, these are loans, not grants. So again, we're going to share the link. You can check out to see if your business is in one of these 42 counties. And then Kelly, what do people do if their business may be impacted by this lack of snow, but isn't in one of these counties?
Sure. So we have already had some reach out from some of our small business owners that they noticed that their county was not on the list. If your county did not apply for that designation back in the summer, when we were having the rain drought, it's possible that that county may not receive it. We do encourage you to call your county office and ask if maybe they could reach out to your congressman or maybe a U.S. senator to see if it's possible to still receive this designation. We have been boots on the ground with, well, not on the ground because we're here and they're up there, but we have numerous partners in the UP that are looking into finding ways to help small business owners in those counties that are not designated in that list. As we gain more information, we will certainly share that, but we really do encourage you, call your county office, see if there's any possibility for them to contact Congressman Bergman or U.S. Senators Stabenow and Peters to help during this time. We know how hard you work. We're sorry that you didn't receive the snow that you are anticipating, but we will do everything we can to provide you information to make sure that you have access to funds to help get you through this.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Before we say goodbye today, I do want to remind you that if you are in the Kent region, we will be in Grand Rapids on Wednesday for one of our owner-to-owner events. And if you're in the Oakland area, we will be headed that direction on March 14th for a really cool opportunity at Oakland University. So you can learn more about both of those events at sbam.org/events. And then looking a little bit further into March, we do have a webinar coming up. It's called Strategic Streamlining 10 Steps to Enhance Efficiency and Grow Your Bottom Line. So again, you can learn about those 3 events and everything else coming up on the website. And that's it for today. So Kelly, thank you for joining us today. Brian will be back here on Thursday, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Everybody have a great week. And if you need us, don't forget to visit our website or email us. Have a great week.